This is my sourdough quick timing guide. I am using 900 grams of bread flour, 600 grams of water, and I am actually using more than the 16 grams of salt. I use about 20 grams of salt, just whatever feels good to you. And then 300 grams of starter. You can use up to 340, or you can use as little as 150. It might just rise just a little bit slower. I'm just measuring out grams. Grams are a little more accurate than, say, ounces and a measuring cup. So that's why I like the grams. So I'm gonna go ahead and mix this together, and then I'm gonna show you the consistency of what it should look like. So at first the dough is really wet, and you might think once you're mixing it, well, it goes through stages. When you first start mixing it, it's dry, and then it turns into this really wet, goopy mess, and it's really, really sticky. It'll stick to your fingers really crazy, and you'll think this dough is way too wet. I need to add flour. I made that mistake when I was first learning. Don't add flour. It's not a good idea. Yeah, you want the bread to be moist. As it sits over time, the flour and the water will kind of soak into each other, and it gets more firm, and it turns into a way less sticky dough. It's way less sticky after the first 30 minutes, and then even an hour later, it'll start forming this sort of dough ball. So you can use stainless steel, or your stand mixer has a stainless steel bowl. I was using that for a while, and then I noticed that my bread results weren't coming out like I was used to. So it just took longer for my bread to cook, and then when I did pull it out, it was sometimes still gummy after cooking it for an extra 10, even 15 minutes. And the only thing I could figure was once I switched back to my plastic bowl, I no longer had the problems. So that is why I prefer this type of bowl. Everyone does it differently. Some people even do all of their stretch and folds in a stand mixer. So you could try it out. I would recommend doing it this way first so that you know what you like. And sometimes sourdough can be a little finicky because it is a live bacteria. So it's just best to keep it healthy and make sure that it's performing how it should so you don't get discouraged. If there happens to still be some dry spots in there and you didn't get them all, don't worry, it'll get taken care of in your stretch and fold process that will come a little later on. So as you let it sit, it will just kind of soak in. This is what it currently looks like. Watch how it changes. So we did 1, 2, 3. You can be kind of, I'm gonna do 12 of these. You can be kind of vigorous with the stretch on the first one. After that, we'll do it a little bit lighter. So we're just gonna stretch it. We're creating the gluten structure right now, and it doesn't exactly have to be 12 stretch and folds, but that's about how many it needs. You can skip some of the stretch and folds. It just sometimes won't quite rise as well, but sometimes when I'm in a hurry, I'll just do 2 sets, like the first and second set. My sister-in-law doesn't stretch and fold hers at all. And so, hey, there is a way to make this so that everyone can make sourdough bread and fit it into their schedule so it doesn't feel overwhelming. I think the most important part about sourdough is that you enjoy making it and that you want to keep doing it because it is so good for you. So whatever that looks like for you is great. The dough has really started to form its kind of ball shape already. So I will kind of show you what that looks like. You can kind of see how it's started to create its form. take it from one side and fold it over, then the other side and fold it over. I feel like it's folding like a diaper. And then same with the other one. So we are stretching the surface of it to create surface tension. This is kind of what we're doing. And yeah, some of the air bubbles are getting popped and stuff, and that is okay with me. You just don't want to like smash it down. So then we're just going to shape it. This is just the pre-shape, so I'm not going to be really vigorous with it or anything like that. If there are really big air bubbles, which here I see there are 2, I am going to break them because I don't know about you, but I'm personally not a big fan of giant air bubbles. So this is just the pre-shape. We'll do our final shape later. This bread is gonna turn out bigger than this one. Okay, so after you are done pre-shaping it, you're just gonna leave it for about 30 minutes to an hour, and then we will do a final shape. We'll do the same kind of process again, create a little more surface tension, shape a little bit better, and then these are awesome. They're the pre-cut sheets. You can find them at a kitchen store, and they're so convenient. You just pull them out, take your Banneton, put them in. Sometimes I have an issue with them staying in if my hands are a little wet and I just press it. That is a trick that works really great and it stays in there really nicely, but it's not really necessary. You can just make sure you have enough kind of equal amounts on either side. So it's easy because you're going to use this paper to pull your bread up and into your Dutch oven and back out of your Dutch oven. So I have this 10-inch Dutch oven that works really great. It's not expensive, but my favorite thing is this, okay? This keeps the bottom of your bread from burning. So, well, not just burning. I mean, it doesn't really burn, but like it gets really dark and doesn't taste that great. And so this has been life-saving. Now, some people put a cookie sheet underneath. I've tried that. It doesn't really work that well. This is awesome. My friend ordered a bunch of these and then just broke the legs off and then just gives them out. So I was like, these are awesome. And they're really cheap. We've got the Bannetons ready. I'm gonna sprinkle a little bit of flour in here. The times that I forget, we end up eating a little bit of parchment paper. So I have learned just a little bit goes a long way. I want this to be my top of my bread. So I'm gonna just go ahead and create more surface tension. Again, same thing as we did before. And then I will flip it like this. I have tried skipping this step and my bread is a little bit more flat. It doesn't rise, it's not as round of a loaf. So I do recommend doing it a second time. And then this is where we're really pre-shaping it. You can cover these loaves while they're in between rest time. Keeps them from drying out. I usually do that. Didn't do it this time. Okay, it's shaped good enough for me. I'm gonna pop it in. I don't mind the thicker air bubbles in the center. I just don't like the ones that are on the surface area. Okay, so these are done. I am going to cover them in saran wrap, put them in the fridge, and we will bake them tomorrow. If you prefer to just go ahead and bake your bread and not wait until tomorrow, that's fine. Go ahead and preheat your oven. Should take about an hour and a half of your bread sitting on the counter to be fully proofed. So I would recommend performing the poke test just to know if it needs a little more time to proof or if it's ready to go in. It's about 2:45 in the afternoon and we are gonna pull our bread directly out of the refrigerator and take the saran wrap off. I'm gonna go ahead and slice the top of it. By the way, I have had the oven preheating at 450 for the last 30 to 40 minutes because I want that Dutch oven to be really nice and hot. So I wait till it reaches the 450 and then I let it sit for at least 15 minutes to get it nice and hot. Okay, so first how we test to see if we have overproofed our bread or not is the poke test. So we are going to poke the bread, and if it stays really dented and doesn't come back at all, then it's slightly overproofed. Here's a closer look at the poke test. You can see that it bounces back, but not all the way, and so that's perfect. I'm going ahead and slice into this. I used my sharpest kitchen knife, and I left a pretty good size slice in there. Okay, it's cold, straight from the fridge. We're gonna go ahead and take the lid off, grab it from the sides, and put it directly in. If you're scared, you can use oven mitts, but go ahead and set that timer to 35 minutes. I am going to put the lid on here and just leave the lid on the entire time, not following the recipe, which tells you to actually cook it for 30 minutes with the lid on and with the lid off for another 10 to 12 minutes. Go ahead and do that if you prefer a crispier crust. My family and I, we don't like it quite as crispy, and we like the crust to be a little lighter in color. So that's why we do it this way. It's best not to eat your bread when it's warm. It's best to let it cool for about 2 to 3 hours and then slice into your bread. That allows the bread to cook just a little bit longer, and while it's kind of sitting on the counter. The timer has went off, so now it's time to pull the bread out. I just grab the edges right here and lift up and out. The paper's not really hot, so I went ahead and put the cast iron pan back together, put it in the oven. We're going to wait 15 minutes for it to heat back up, and then we will put the other loaf in, straight from the fridge like we did, cutting a little slit along the top, and then baking it for 35 minutes again. So it will be right in time for dinner. I'm gonna let this cool for a couple of hours. It'll be 6:30, perfect time for dinner. This bread is so moist and so delicious that you won't even believe how healthy it is for you. Subscribe and click on the link if you want to find out more ways to be able to use your sourdough discard, and also the best ratio for this recipe for your sourdough starter.